Seeing Thor Love and Thunder was a very interesting experience for me, with a big asterisk next to the word interesting. After exiting the movie theater and trying to wrap my head around the movie, I nearly felt shell-shocked. Something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I've become a pretty big fan of Taika Waititi over the years and absolutely loved what he did with Thor Ragnarok. So, needless to say, I was super excited for this next installment of the Norse god. However, as time went on, I began mulling it over in my head. The more I thought about it, the more I disliked this film. With all the hot criticism circulating the internet regarding the MCU, it's really bizarre to me to see people giving this movie a pass, when in reality, it missed its mark in nearly every aspect. In all honesty, it's pretty easy to pick apart just about everything this movie had to offer. Usually the MCU tries to deploy wit and banter in attempts of keeping the story light and comedic, but here we got Russell Crowe making offbeat jokes about an all-god orgy and a callback to a 10-year-old meme about screaming goats. Normally I could just let these things slide. I would usually just chalk it up to, this joke didn't land for me. However, for some godforsaken reason, they decided to come back to the same well over and over again to the point where it was beyond dry and they were just pulling up mud in the bucket. If I had known comedy was as easy as throwing out random bits over and over again like pieces of torn up bread to a flock of rabid pigeons, I would have signed up to be a comedian. Then there's the case of Natalie Portman. Personally, I've never been a huge fan of her as an actress. That said, I think the MCU normally does a pretty good job when it comes to casting characters. So even though I wasn't impressed by her performance in the first two Thor movies, I had high hopes that in the hands of a better script and director, she could really shine. To say that I was disappointed would be an understatement. Just from the trailers alone, we knew that she was going to be an important part of the story. Firstly, by reconnecting her with Thor when he's arguably lost everyone that was close to him. Secondly, because she looked like she was going to be taking up the mantle of Thor from here on out. When she first drops into the movie as Thor, she's practically a different person. Confident and capable, kicking ass and taking names. However, her character quickly falls back into an awkward, bumbling mess, feeling out of place in a cosmic adventure and not sure what her battle cry should be. Seeing as Thor is somewhat struggling with his identity and place in the universe, I think it would have been interesting to have his counterpart be nothing but bold and solid. Unfortunately, what we got was our two leads acting like they're on their first date for prom night and contemplating whether they should slow dance or not. Oh, did I mention she has cancer? I realized me throwing that bit in here out of the blue felt tonally jarring, but that's how it felt in the movie as well. Haha, screaming goats, haha. Also, stage 4 terminal cancer, by the way. Yeah, so her being Thor through the power of Mjolnir is the only thing keeping her alive, which is then later explained to us that it's actually killing her. That doesn't make sense. It's really bizarre to me that she was brought into this movie and showcased as the new Thor, only to ultimately end up dying in the end. After all was said and done, I was genuinely questioning whether or not she should have been involved at all. Did we really need another one of Thor's close loved ones to die for him to grow? If she would have been completely removed from the film, would it have really changed that much? Yes, but I think it would have changed for the better. Now we get to the ultimate reason why I ended up hating this movie. They butchered my boy, Gorr the God Butcher.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Let me start off by saying that Christian Bale did an amazing job, but even with all his acting prowess and the energy he brought to each scene, I still couldn't like Gorr in the end.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Allow me to get really cliche and nerdy for a second and say it's because I read the original comic. I know that it's super easy to say, oh, the book is better than the movie, but in reality, I usually give a ton of grace to these movie adaptations because they're trying to squeeze a lot into a 2-hour version of the story. However, that's exactly what I was getting at over Natalie Portman taking up so much screen time. Gorr could have had way more time to be built up and fleshed out, but as it stands, the narrative is just trying to juggle too many things. If he was given more attention, it would give the audience a chance to really feel the threat of him as a villain. We see Gorr kill one god. Seriously, there's only one god that Gorr kills on screen. All the other kills are off screen or just talked about. In the comics, Gorr kills all the gods but Thor, leaving him alive just to suffer in his failure. Throughout the comic, Thor finds the mangled bodies of other gods, showing the immense brutality that Gorr possesses. And sure, we couldn't possibly have violence like that in the movie, that would just be too adult, but 4 back-to-back jokes about orgies is all good. Gorr even goes so far as to kill all the time gods and drain their blood so that he can have a little hot tub time machine. Yeah, there's time travel in the comics. Meanwhile in the movie, we get this. Wait, that's way too much gore, get Natalie back on the screen. Instead of seeing Gorr do some butchering, like his name implies, He kidnaps a bunch of Asgardian children, which I understand is pretty evil in itself, and for a second I thought, is he gonna kill these kids? But then nah, he just kind of messes with them and scares them for fun, which, yes, again, that's not very nice, but it still feels very far off from the genocidal, bloodthirsty monster we see in the comics. Throughout the years, we've seen Marvel drop the ball when it comes to villains. Sure, there's a few exceptions, but they really had a chance here to flesh something out formidable for our hero to stand against in his time of feeling lost and confused in the universe. The best MCU villains have always been the ones that they took time to build up and establish like actual characters, while the worst MCU villains have always just been thrown in for our protagonist to beat up in the third act. This movie just seemed like a real setback for the MCU. I'm a big Marvel fan, and for a while I was nervous that the momentum was going to die completely after Endgame, but for a bit there it felt like it was holding its own. There were unique and creative TV shows, movies that I still got plenty hype for, but now after seeing this, it feels like it's way more wobbly than I first perceived. It does make me a bit concerned for things here on out, especially because they just announced a bunch of new stuff. Sure, maybe I'm being a little pessimistic for future projects, but I really went into this movie thinking that there was no way they could possibly mess this up, and I was proven wrong. Ultimately, we will just have to wait and see what they do with the future movies. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for King to be in the new Avengers movie for only 30 seconds and then get 20 minutes of the Hulk Fortnite dancing on Tony Stark's grave. Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. I know I was heavy-handed and that a lot of people seem to have really enjoyed this movie. If there were things that you thought redeemed it, make sure to share down below. On the other hand, if you agreed with me, what are your thoughts towards the future of the MCU? As always, check back for more reviews in the future. Peace out!